Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I am your host, Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Ollie. How are you feeling today?
A little bit under the weather. Why?
Well, it's because I knew you a little bit under the weather, so I thought I'd
I feel like
ask how you're doing.
I'm coming out of the illness and you're going into it.
Yeah, but we're passing it on. This is like the passing of the baton in this this podcast. So it's going to start off, Ollie's going to sound a little bit rough, and then by the end, I will. That's the goal.
Yeah, I just hope I don't, sometimes when I hear podcasts and people sound a bit ill, it starts to make me feel ill. Well, hopefully I don't do the same for them.
Okay, well, look out, everybody. I promise you, this podcast is worth looking forward to and enjoying, because we are talking about my choice of game, which is a certain game called Slay the Spire. Do you want to let everyone know what Slay the Spire is, Ollie?
Yes. I'm going to read out the Wikipedia entry and then I'm going to hit you with a question straight away.
Okay.
So, Slay the Spire is a roguelike deck-building video game developed by the American indie studio Megacrit, published by Humble Bundle. The game was first released in early access for Windows, macOS, and Linux in 2017, with an official release in January 2019. It's then released for PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox One, with the iOS and Android versions coming later. In Slay the Spire, the player attempts to ascend a spire of multiple floors created through procedural generation. Battling through enemies and bosses, combat takes place through a collectible card game-based system, with the player gaining new cards as rewards from combat and other means, requiring the player to use strategies of deck-building games to construct an effective deck to complete the climb. And the question I'm going to ask you is from Jelliot SSB on YouTube, that says, as someone who has hundreds of hours in this game, what made you choose this game over other deck-building roguelikes?
Okay, good question, especially to start with, because I, as you know, often talk about why I chose the game. So a big reason is generally I don't consider myself a big roguelike fan, and I'm also not into deck builder games. So might seem like a bizarre choice. So I came across this game from a Game Maker's Toolkit video. And I basically just watch every video he uploads. So I watched the video he did about this, and he was kind of talking about what made this game work. And he's kind of talking about the way that there's kind of synergy between the cards and stuff. And basically the examples he gave of his time playing it and his explanation, I was like, you know what? Normally this game wouldn't interest me. If I saw a trailer, I probably wouldn't look twice at it. But just hearing someone kind of explain the mechanics, I was like, I'm going to give it a go. So this was the first one of these that I played. And it is my favorite, which is why I chose it. I have since played others, but none of them have kind of scratched the exact same itch as Slay the Spire. So that's the reason I chose it. Nice.
That's a very good explanation. I kind of wish I'd watched that video before doing this.
Oh, sorry. You can watch it afterwards. It's only 10 minutes long. Slay the Spire. So I discovered this game a few years ago. But I've obviously been replaying it for this. And I know you kind of have a similar story. So you had played this game a bit before replaying it for this podcast, right?
Yeah, but I realised playing it this time around, I'd actually played a lot less than I thought I had. So I thought I'd finished a run with one of the characters. But I think what I probably did is got to Act 2. Okay. And then put it down and was like, I get it, and I liked it, but for some reason I never picked it up again.
So Act 2 of the 4 acts. You're doing the Hollow Knight strategy of half the game's enough.
Also, there's 4 acts? I thought there was 3.
Oh, yeah, no, there are 4 acts.
Okay, so I played, I'm assuming you've played hundreds of hours, right, of this game?
I'm not sure the exact, I'm probably maybe slightly under 100, but I'm certainly over 50.
Okay, so I've done about 15, and I've finished 2 runs.
So when you say finished, so you've killed what you think
I've seen the credits. I've seen the credits twice.
Okay,
yeah.
And so is that 2 different characters?
Yeah, the ironclad guy, and then the silent. I think it's both of them. So yeah, I've been away recently on holiday, and I played so much of this game that we spoke recently about when you have a dream and you dream about a game. I've had that with this, where I had a dream that I was excavating something. And I was like, I've used my 3 points, so I can't do anything. And then I was having dreams about that. And then also, so a little bit of behind the scenes, Joe sends me the Blood Brothers videos before they go live. And I was watching that and I saw myself attack twice and then roll. And I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I've used up all my points. Like, that's how much I've played this game.
So were you playing it that much because you're like, oh, I want to see as much as I can before the podcast, or were you so compelled to keep playing that you played so much?
I really enjoyed it up until I found a pretty good strategy, in which case I think I kind of ruined it for myself. So basically it took me 11 hours to clear one run.
Okay.
With Ironclad, and then I cleared it with the Silent first time, because I just used the same strategy again and it worked. And I was like, I'm a genius. And then I read online about the third character, who's the like orb.
Yeah.
The defect. And I was like, and that was yesterday. So then I was like, do you know what? I've seen enough and that sounds too complicated to get into now. So I'm just going to put it down.
I know I just blew your mind about there being 4 acts. There are 4 characters as well.
Oh, I've seen since by looking up characters that there's another character.
I was hoping to blow your mind. So before you get into like your specific strategy or anything, I feel like, I know you read the Wikipedia, but I feel like I kind of need to, in more layman terms, explain exactly what this game is. So did you want me to do that, or did you want to have
Why don't you do it? You never do it. You do it.
Okay. So the way this game works, so obviously it's a roguelike, which basically means that you're doing a run. So it would be kind of randomly generated, and then if you fail, like all progress is lost and you start again from the beginning. And so it's a deck builder game, but you start off with just a very basic deck, which is basically just like a few cards, which is basically just attack or defend. And then you have like an overview map where you're kind of choosing a route where you go through and you can see whether you're going to be fighting normal enemies, getting chests, or like elites and bosses and stuff. So you kind of have a bit of control about what you're doing, but generally you're fighting enemies. And then once you kill those enemies, you'll usually get a choice between 3 cards. And so it might be a card that poisons the enemy, or a card that allows you to draw 3 cards, or whatever it is. But you add that to your deck. So you start off with a very small deck at the beginning that you have no control over, and you're gradually building your deck as you go through. And kind of the strategy comes in is you're thinking about like, oh, well, I've got this card that, makes it so enemies that are poisoned take more damage. I want to pick up cards that give the enemy poison. So you're kind of developing a strategy as you go. But then there's a few other things, like you can also collect potions, which are like single use kind of abilities, and then things called relics, which are kind of put over your character. And there's loads of these, and these can basically just affect all sorts of different things about the way you play. And then you're kind of going through trying to defeat a boss. If you defeat that, you get another boss. And then there's 3 acts for the main game, and once you kill that, you've won. But then there is kind of a 4th act that I guess we'll talk about a little bit later on. Yeah. Is that all of the... have I missed anything major?
I think maybe the only thing you've missed, which might just be me, but I think it's also quite hard. Like, it's not made to be beaten more often than not. It's made for you to lose more often than not, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes with roguelikes. It's not... Like in a normal game, it's sort of like, oh, I've failed, whatever. Whereas I feel like with roguelikes, the point is you're learning and going to succeed. And also, I guess maybe it's a roguelite because if you do well in a run, you get XP, and then you permanently get basically more kind of cards and relics that could be available to show up in future runs. So you don't get them guaranteed, but it basically widens the pool of things that are available.
Yeah, and I'd also say, like, if this is the first time you've heard of it, like, don't be put off by the fact that it's a card game, because like the feedback is quite good for like when you use your cards. Like, it's quite punchy, so it doesn't feel like you're playing cards on a table. It feels like you're actually having a fight.
Yeah, and also there's never a point where it's like, okay, you got to create a deck, like pick your 30 cards, and there's 300 cards in this game.
True.
You got to play Hearthstone or something. It's like very overwhelming. Whereas this, in most cases, when you're choosing to add a card, you're just picking 1 card, and you have 3 things. The descriptions are amazing for what the card does. Like, there's never any doubt. And even like when you're in the middle of a game, like if you have an effect on you, like weakness, like you can just immediately scroll over what it is and it'll be like, it will do specifically this, and everything in the game is always, all of the information is available on screen. If you picked up a relic earlier, you can always immediately kind of recheck it. So it makes it very easy to get into, as I say, as someone who isn't into card games normally.
Yeah, I would just say I don't think the descriptions are that good. And also the UI is not that good, but like I do agree with you. But I think maybe the fact that you've played it so much might mean that.
Yeah, well, maybe. So the UI, we'll talk about kind of like the art and the overall aesthetic and stuff later on. But in terms of like the card descriptions, did you ever struggle with some of them, like not understanding them?
Yeah. So there's 2 in particular, which my strategy ended up hinging on that I didn't even realize that I could use because of the description. Okay. So one of them was barricade, which was So basically what you do in the game is you build up block. So you know
I
someone's
know
going to attack
exactly
you.
what your strategy was.
Yeah, so you build up block, and barricade says you don't lose your block at the end of your turn.
Yeah.
So I was like, so every time I want to keep the block, I have to play barricade. I didn't realize that it meant permanently you don't lose, because there's another card called Blur that says you don't lose your block on your next turn. And it was like,
okay.
Those two together, I was like, I don't know what, it's not clear. It's not immediately clear how long things last for, or, you know, if it's a multiplier, or if it's the amount of turns it lasts for, or what, like, and you kind of are meant to experiment with them and like try them out. But the thing is like, it's really hard the game's pretty hard. It's also really hard to get your health back. So it's like, I don't really want to play around, because I'm like potentially 70% of the way through normally quite quickly. And it's like, I don't want to mess around at this point. So it's like, I was getting quite, basically barricade and blur were the two that I was like, there's only one word difference in these descriptions, and they're actually completely different. Like, the ways they work.
I think the word difference exactly explains it. So the description for barricade is block is not removed at the start of your turn. And I think that explains, whereas whenever they say, because there's a lot of cards that will be like, play this card, next turn, draw 3 cards, or next turn, gain 1 extra energy. And it always explains if it's talking about next turn, or for your next 3 turns, you do this. So as where if it says at the start of your turn, draw an extra card, I'm like, oh, that's always at the start of my turn, I draw an extra card. So I could see maybe if you'd only read the barricade card, you might have a bit of doubt. But I feel like once you've played a bit and you know it always specifies if it's talking about only like a one-time thing. Like I felt like because of that, I understood it all fine.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of cards like that as well that affects the whole game, or the whole combat. That's what they call it, like the combat, the scenario. Sometimes I just didn't think it was... I would basically have to play the cards to know exactly what they did. But sometimes I wouldn't feel like playing them because it's like so difficult. I'd be like, I don't even want to risk putting this out there, because I'll just get like some combats I was in was like, I'll try something and then I'll get wiped out in a single hit the next turn, because all of the enemies will have like 30 damage each. I'll be like, I'm just dead then. And it would just kill me. But I mean, I got the hang of it, because I managed to clear it. And then the second time I cleared it on my first attempt with that character. So
can I guess what your strategy was? Was it basically build up loads of blocks? I use barricade, probably the one that doubles your block, and then you use body slam, which basically means the higher your block is, there's the amount of damage you'll do to enemies. Was that because that is a winning strategy for the Ironclad?
Yeah, that is exactly it. It took me like 11 hours to figure that out, but I did manage to figure it out. And then for the silent, so who's more of a like, I guess they're more like a kind of ninja character.
Yeah, so their main things, like their, I guess, identifiers, is they get shivs, which are basically attacks that don't use any energy, and there's a lot of builds you could do around that, and then poisoning as well. Yeah.
So my build with them, the time that I cleared it, was I basically picked block or poison, like 60-40. So mostly going into block, but also because poison hits over time, I could like chip away with the poison, and that was like also successful. And then because of blur, which lets you keep your block for one more turn, I had like 3 or 4 blur cards, so almost every turn I was managing to keep it for the next one. So that's how I managed to clear it. And I was literally like, oh my god, I've like figured out how to win this game. But obviously with 2 characters.
One of the things I like though is you can be like that strategy I said about for Ironclad, like that block strategy, like it's super strong. But you might not get barricade. You might not get body slam. Like when you go into a run, you can have like, oh, I know what would work, but I might not get those cards. And suddenly I started getting like, oh, I got a few cards that like really boost up my strength. You know what? Maybe I should not focus on block, use block to defend, but maybe I should try and like get some synergy between a bunch of cards that put my strength really high. Or suddenly I'm getting loads of ones that means like, oh, I got a card that every time I exhaust a card, which is basically like take it out your deck, I do damage to an enemy, but I got another card that allows me to exhaust loads of cards. So what I like to do and try and force myself to do is just to go in with like a clear mind, no strategy and be like, whatever's cards start first, like the first kind of really good card I get, be like, I'm going to try and base my strategy around that. But then maybe suddenly I get a better card and I will switch it. And I think that's the best way to do it, rather than like feel like I keep rolling the dice until I get the build I want. I'm trying to adapt like each run. And I think that's where you could be like, I have worked out the strategy, but well, that doesn't help you unless you get your barricade.
Well, yeah. So I spoke to a friend of the show, Chris, about this on Saturday in the pub, and I was like, yeah, I feel like I've kind of done it because I've figured out this barricade, like body slam thing. And he was like, he said what you said. He's like, yeah, you've done it as long as you get those 2 cards, because he really likes this game too. And he's like, but if you'd mastered it, you'd be able to do it with any cards.
Exactly.
You can only do it with that one set, which he's completely right. Like, because I was originally trying to do a build where I was using loads of flex, which is a card that puts your strength up.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was finding that I was just getting absolutely spanked by the enemies. Like, they were just killing me in one hit. So then I moved on to block. But then it took me ages to get that because I wasn't getting barricade and body slam at the same time. So I was like just restarting, like, come on, you have to get those cards.
I think that's the least fun way to play it, because like eventually you might get the right dice roll, but like I like to think every run is precious.
Yeah.
every run there's no throwaway. Oh, I didn't get the cards I wanted early. No throwaway runs. And then also I think the other thing is you always got to think like, if I'm in this situation, I'm not caring about getting past the next enemy or whatever, like the next few enemies or even the boss in this act. I am thinking about how am I going to be in a position to defeat the final boss, which is very difficult. Like that's all. Like I don't care about making a build that makes it safe to get through there. If I can get to the final boss and it kills me, that doesn't matter. So I'm always prepping for the final boss and then doing just what I need to get past everything else.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was more focused on like, I just need to survive to the next fire, and then I can give myself a third of my, or 20% of my health back. Yeah. Like, as long as I can find the next one, I would always plan my routes based on fires. And be like,
so these are like campfires that basically you could either rest at or upgrade a weapon. But obviously you normally want to be trying to upgrade a card, sorry, not a weapon. I mean, it might be a weapon. But so normally when you get to them, you want to be hardly ever resting, because then you're losing out on the opportunity to like permanently upgrade one of the cards in your deck.
Yeah, well, I had a few cards that also upgrade all of your hand, which are really handy. Like Armament was one I used a lot. That was like, I'm going to just keep pretty much every time it came up, I'd use it like straight away.
Yeah, there's a card called oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I feel like I sound like I'm being really negative. I did actually really enjoy this game, and I did play it for 15 hours. So like I did get enjoyment out of it. So,
no, you don't sound negative at all. Did you want me to explain what like about the Act 4, just kind of some of the stuff that you might not have seen, just so you kind of know everything that's in there?
Yeah, so I'll explain up to where I got to, and then you can go from there. So basically, there's 2 characters to start with, and you finish the game as one of them, and then this like it comes up with this picture of this like triangle, and then like one of the corners like lights up. Then so you can see there's 3 characters, but you only have 2 of them. And then I did another one that lit up another triangle, and I was like, okay, obviously I'm building up something here. Also, something weird happened where like I hit the heart at the end, and it was like, players have done like 6 gazillion damage to the heart.
Yeah.
Or something. And it was like, okay. And then I just kind of moved on from that. So I did 2 of them, and then that's as far as I got.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I can't remember what you do to unlock the other characters. I assume you just keep playing it or something, because I unlocked them years ago, and then I've carried on my save down. I had them all, so I can't remember what you do. But then once you've completed a run as each character, it basically allows you to get keys during run. And the way you get keys, one is it will put a really powerful, like they call it an elite, which is basically like a mini boss in the level, which is like an enemy with like flames around it on the map. And you have to defeat that to get one of the keys, so you can't pick a route that doesn't go through it. Also, when you get to one of the big chests, of which there's only usually one in each act, you got to not take whatever it would give you to take a key. And then also, when you get to one of the campfires, you need to not rest or upgrade a weapon. You need to take one of the keys. So basically, it's like 3 things to make the game a little bit harder you got to do. And then if you have all 3 of those keys and then defeat what would be the final boss for you, you get to Act 4, which is basically just a shop, a campfire, and then 2 really difficult bosses back to back where you can't heal between that. And then the last boss is that heart you were talking about. You actually get to like face it properly.
So what's the like ascension thing? Because I watched a video of a streamer who's like really into the game called Jorbs. Just that's how I learned about the 3rd character and the orb system. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm on ascension 20." So what's that?
So it's basically like difficulty. So you can put the ascension level higher, and it's basically like modifiers in the game to make it more difficult. And then there's also a custom mode as well, where you can kind of personally like select all of those modifiers. I've not played around with them. As you say, like I'm trying to get to Act 4. That was plenty difficult for me enough. I was not doing that regularly enough that I was like, yep, let's make this harder for me. So I haven't played, like I kind of scrolled through like to have a little look through like what some of the different ones are. But I've not really played with, like, as I say, the game was hard enough for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think like one thing that can't be overstated enough is like it's such a clever system at work that the gameplay is built on. Basically, the building up your attack and building up your defense is so simple, but it's so clever. And like I feel like it's like, I don't know, the fact that also it's a card game where you don't play another person is also like really clever. Like this is a very well put together game, very well designed.
That's one of the things that the YouTuber's called Mark Brown, the Game Maker's Toolkit video I was talking about. He's kind of saying the reason they can do things like have these really OP builds and these really like these certain combinations that are really powerful is because you're against bots, like you're against AI. Like it doesn't matter. If this was in like Magic the Gathering or something, or Hearthstone or whatever, like they couldn't have cards as they are and the way they all work together, because like you would get an OP build and that would become the meta and everyone would just use those cards, or those cards would get banned. Where like all of the cards, well, not all of them, but a lot of the cards, they work in unison, whereas a lot of card games are much more direct. This is the creature and it will do this attack and the attack will do 15 damage, and it gets very complex very quickly when you start adding modifiers and other cards that would affect that, and that's what this game is all about.
Yeah. It's funny, one of my pros I've written is like you can make anything and it never feels unfair. But I guess that's because you're against a computer. It's just like, screw that guy, I'm going to hit you for like 120 damage with my body slam.
Yeah.
I'll kill you with one hit, it's fine.
But one of the cool things is there'll be times when I'm like, oh, I've got it made. Like I've got the combination of weapons I have and like cards or whatever are so good. Like there's literally like I am invincible. But even when you have that, you might go into a fight and it might take a few turns until you get that set up. Or even like you just might never get the cards in the order you need. And that's always a risk where it's like, I've got a really powerful setup, but it takes me about 5 turns until I get it in position. And that might be enough for me to get like destroyed or something can go wrong. And so one of the big parts of the game, and this is one of the tips that I gave to you, is like getting rid of cards or just not picking cards is as important, because there might be a card where it's like, this card does 15 damage and costs 2 energy. And it's like, that's a fine card, but it's just isolated, does 15 damage, nothing else. Whereas, you could be picking up the card that, you could be getting Barricade or something in its place. And so having a really like lean deck that has just what you need is like really important. And I really love that side of it. And the game knows it, because you can go to the shop and instead of buying a card, you can pay like 75 gold, which is quite a lot, to like just remove a single card, and you can only remove one. Like the game knows how important it is just to get rid of cards.
Yeah, for sure. Like all of the strikes, they're just gone. Like I'm not hanging on to strikes, like they are gone. And also, as you said, like you can get a attack card that does like 11 damage. And it's like, oh, that's good. But then you'll get like one that does 11 damage and 10 block. And all of a sudden, the 11 damage one, you're like, I actually don't want that anymore, because like, it's quite hard to understand, like if you're not looking at it. But imagine if you had like 4 cards and all of them were really good, or if you had 8 cards but 4 of them were quite bad. Imagine every time you're drawing it, you have 1 in 2 chance of getting the bad one. So it's like, that's what you're doing, is you're trying to cut it up and only have the really good stuff on there. It's very clever. I'm really glad you gave me that tip, because I would not have thought of doing that. But
it also is constantly changing. Then there was one deck I did, which was amazing, where I basically got a card that does damage for every card in your draw pile. And I was like, okay, new strategy, just get as many cards. Like, like those Shiv cards that you can like draw 5, and I'd be like, I draw them and I don't use them because they're more valuable just sitting in my deck, not being exhausted. So like there's really kind of, it almost gets like a little bit meta, but like within the fact that it's kind of talking about your deck, and we haven't spoken about the relics much, but they can completely alter it. Like there's like a relic that you can get. It's like a pyramid. What's it called? The runic pyramid, which basically means so normally you would play your cards and then those cards would be kind of put into your discard pile. But this would basically mean that never happens. So like you'd play your cards and then you'd just only draw new cards so you could keep your hands. And like that relic is so powerful because it gives you so much control. It's like, oh, good, I've got the card I need, but I can't really afford it with the energy I have now. Or, oh, I need to spend all my energy on blocking this round, but I can save it. And so I can get all of my ducks in a row before I unleash whatever nastiness I've got planned for all of the enemies in the game. And it's like moments like I'll have a plan for a run for what I'm going to do. And then I get a relic like that. And I'm like, okay, everything's just based around that relic now. Like anything else is out the window. That is so crucial. Like I'm just going to change everything and try and focus around that. And then when you do that and it works and you are able to adapt and like halfway through a run change your strategy, that's when I think the game is most rewarding.
And it's funny, right? Because it sounds like nothing. Like it's like this time you don't put your cards down, and you'd be like, okay, but then it's like I don't put them down. Like it's such a simple little change, but like it does make a huge difference.
It changes everything.
I had a really good combo of 2 relics, which I didn't clear this run, but it was very good. It was one relic where if I take 5 damage or less, it just does 1. And then I had another relic that was if it does 1, it does none. So they had to damage me more than 5 on top of my block in order to damage me at all.
That's a great combo. And they were both red because that's like rare to like, because you don't get to pick as many relics as cards. So that was probably you're never gonna get that combo again.
I know. But yeah, so I didn't clear that. I didn't clear that one. That was one where I came across that elite that's like got 999 health.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with them.
Oh, I killed him I figured it out in the end. Yeah.
Okay.
So the elites got a question from AAA Gaming on Twitter. Says, what's your respective favourite and least favourite elite fight? Personally, my favourite is a Reptomancer. Oh, my least favourite is a Reptomancer, sorry. And my favourite is the Book of Stabbing or the Giant Head.
Oh yeah. I always don't like the ones where it's a group of enemies. Like the ones that like are spawning in minions. They're my least favorite. I'm not sure. You know what? The amount I've played this game and the amount I've seen these same enemies again and again and again.
Yeah.
Like none of them stand out that much in my head. Actually, the one you mentioned that has loads of health and basically you got to just damage it to reduce the amount of damage it does. Like that one stands out, but not necessarily as a favorite. But yeah, there's not really one that's standing out in my mind. How about you?
There's ones that I know I don't like.
yeah. It's funny we both went in that direction. And it's also not even don't like as in, oh, it's bad. It's just like, oh, I don't want to deal with this.
yeah. The slime. I hate the slime. I hate him so much. Every time you get him down to about a third of his health, he splits into 2.
So when this is exactly in half, but you can really exploit that, because what I would do is, say if it's doing a move where it's just like blocking or doing like a debuff or something, is I won't kill it if I'm going to go into that half mode. I basically try and get it as close to 50% of its health as possible, and then on a go where it's going to do a big attack, I'll do as much damage as I can, knowing I don't need to block at all because it's not going to hit me, because once it goes under that damage, it will split. But the ones it splits to will have as much health as it had. So you want to do as much damage. So they're ones that can be annoying at first, but once you learn them, they're actually kind of the easiest because they're quite exploitable.
Yeah, so I figured out, I thought it was the lower third of the health, but I figured out basically like the more damage I can do to it in one turn, the less it will split into. And the other one that was really annoying me until I figured it out was the like red guy that every time you block, its strength goes up.
Yeah.
And I was literally like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, he's so annoying.
So
yeah, actually no, my favorite, I've got a favorite as well. It's the like snake thing with the 2 legs, and it casts Confuse, because like Confuse is actually like 50% of the time it's good. So it's not bad.
The way Confused works, so all of the cards you have, it has like a certain amount of energy it costs to play. Usually normally between 1 and 3. Some of them go higher. And basically it will randomize that. So cards that are normally really cheap might be expensive, and then like your really OP card will be like free, maybe. So basically randomize it, which is sometimes good, and sometimes it ends your run because suddenly well, your whole plan is out the window.
Yeah. The just on your run ending and things like that. One thing I really like about this game is that like it's pretty quick to like finish a run. The two that I completed both took me about an hour. And like I really like that. Whereas I feel like a lot of roguelikes are like the runs can really go on and then you can kind of lose 3 hours in and be like really annoyed. And also
it has an ending. It's not going until you fail. What's your score? It's I completed it. The credits roll.
Yeah. And also the fact that like it makes you want to play again. I don't know why, but I was like having to play again. As soon as I finished, I was like, right, if you lose, I'm like, right, I'm going to do it differently this time and go in again. So that I don't know what that's called. I've called it one more runness, but like it's good.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm someone who's not like, I don't really get like stuck in like, when people will get stuck in like a loot gathering game or like a mobile game that kind of tricks your brain to I want more, like kind of that dopamine loop. Like I'm quite glad that I don't get stuck in those kind of games. Like I don't really get addicted to games like that. This is, I feel like, the closest. Like when I started playing it and I just started doing my first run, it was like I started playing it about a week before we kind of had to start playing it, just because I was kind of playing it a little bit. And it was at a time when I was quite busy with work. And I started playing it and I was like, oh no, well, this isn't good. Oh no, I'm getting like this isn't good for like my productivity. I was like, oh, I remember now. I remember what it was like this game and how obsessive like I got over it before. Yeah. And I was generally like, oh dear, like I know I need to carry on. Like I got to get this work done, but I know I won't be able to not play it now.
Right. So it's just the drive to beat Act 4 then was what was.
No, no, it was just play. I just loved playing it. I just love like, especially once you're started a run and you've like began building your deck. I'm like, I want to play that through to the end. Like I'm not good at stopping halfway through a run until I've got to the end because I get so like invested because you're making so many, like it's really a game about decision making. And like, there's so many different, like there's the big out grand decision making of like picking the cards and building your deck. And then like you're picking your route to get your way through. And then obviously in each combat, you're picking the cards for that overall turn. But then you're also thinking for that combat overall to like set yourself up for things later on. And I think it's just that like creative decision making that I just find so compelling. And I just want to kind of keep on going. And once I've made the decision of, I'm trying to build a deck that's going to be like this, I want to carry on until I see whether I succeed or fail doing that.
So what about the other two characters then? Do you play as them?
Yeah, so my favourite one is the Defect, who's kind of like a robot. Yeah, which is the one with the orbs. So the way they work is they basically channel orbs. There's an electricity orb, which basically will just, at the end of each round, do like a certain amount of damage. There's a frost orb, which will give you a bit of defense. There's a plasma orb, which will give you more energy, which allows you to play more cards. And then there's a dark orb, which basically, once that orb is like exhausted, basically it will do a bunch of damage. So you kind of have like them in a row, and the first it's 3. And so say if I add like more orbs than there is spaces, one of them will get exhausted, and then that will have another effect. Like maybe it'll give you a bunch of extra shield, or the lightning will do a bunch of extra damage, or you'll get extra plasma. And so you're kind of shuffling. So you're trying to work out like, do I want to keep? So I've got like 3 frost there, which is good, but like I need more defense now. So if I play a lightning, I'm actually going to get more defense because it's going to get rid of one of the frost ones, which will add more defense. But then of course there's cards that will add more slots for them, or you can add a card that will add focus, which increases the effectiveness of them. So they're the character above all of the others that are about a setup to a point where I'll have like decks as the Defect that I don't play any cards that directly damage the enemies. All I'm doing is playing with my orbs and rolling them around and rearranging them. And there's so many different like combinations where like it will be like, it's evoke, not exhaust. It'll be like evoke your next orb twice, or the passive ability of them is done a certain amount of times. And I think it's it works with the strengths of the game so well in terms of building up a strategy.
So does it only evokes the orbs when you play another orb and push one out?
So there's like the passive ability that will happen at the end of every round. and then when the orbs kind of reach the end, or you play a card that might be evoke all orbs or something, then it will do like usually a more powerful version of what it was going to be.
Okay, that sounds. So you're basically playing like two hands.
Yeah, kinda. But that's the way to think about it. But on its basic level, like, so the lightning orb will do 3 damage to a random enemy. So
Yeah.
like that's just not that great by itself. So it's all about kind of, as you say, having the synergy with the different orbs, or the dark orbs will be gradually building up how much damage they do until they get evoked. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna just leave that there building up damage, for a really long time. It's just really satisfying to kind of manage all of those her
So what about the fourth guy then?
So the fourth one is called the Watcher, and her kind of thing. So she's got a few things. One, she has loads of cards that are to do with energy and managing energy. Like, you kind of have these things called miracles, and then you basically play them and it will give you more energy. So you can do a lot in a go. And then there's also, you kind of like a switching between, like, I can't remember the way they call it, like different realms basically. So there's like an aggressive realm, and when you're in this state, you do more damage to enemies, but you take more damage as well. But then you can switch to be calm, and when you're calm, it doesn't do anything. But when you leave calm, you gain more energy, and so you're kind of balancing. Like, I want to do a bunch of damage, so I want to be in attack mode, but I want to get out of it before they attack me, and that's kind of her main shtick, I guess.
Yeah, and like with the defect as well, it sounds like having more is not always necessarily better. A bit like your cards, your hand, like your deck. Sorry, you don't always want as much energy as possible. You don't always want as many orbs as possible. You kind of want...
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's not really a downside to having more orbs. But
well, if you're trying to play... I guess if you're trying to get something to the front quicker, you're not going to...
Yeah. I mean, once you get to a point, like, their strategy is like anything that increases the amount of orb slots you have, or like increases the focus, is like really the way to go for them. Like, I kind of like they have other unique things as well, but like I'm always playing around them, and I just find that it really fun. So if you do have any more time, I do recommend maybe look up how you unlock them to have a few runs on them.
I think you just have to finish it with the character previous.
I thought you did
so
that.
I unlocked the defect. I just didn't bother giving it. I looked up how to play them. Yeah, but I just was like, it was yesterday night, and I was like, that's too complicated. So.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so maybe give them a play, because they are my favorite out of the 4.
Can we move on to a negative?
Okay.
And I think you know what I'm going to say.
Are you going to talk about the art?
I might, yeah. So the card artwork, really good. The cards, for some reason, look great. But man, is this game ugly. Like, barely animated. Like, the drawings, I'm sorry, whoever drew them, they're just bad. Like, they are just so bad. Like, the character, the Silent, I don't even know what they're supposed to be. It's like a pile of blankets with, like, something coming out of it. But on the card art, they're, like, flipping around. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm even looking at. You have a guy with a huge sword, the ironclad, but like when he attacks, he just kind of slides forward, like he doesn't swing his sword. Like, this game is rough looking. Environments are rough. I don't know what's
the
up
enemies,
with it.
like the thief enemies that like try and steal stuff from you.
Yeah, their little noses. Like, it's not. The thing is, as well, is like I feel bad for saying it because obviously someone spent a lot of time on it, but like I don't even feel like it's like charming. It's just like really, really ugly. And I also think the UI is like weirdly crowded. So like one thing that would happen quite often is I'd be like, oh, I need to attack this enemy. I think I can kill it. How much health does it have? Well, I don't know because my cards are covering his health bar.
I have run
but then
into
above
that quite a few times.
Above them, there's a huge empty space. It's like, just move them up there. Like, it's this huge gap. And then you have the like, some cards, if you take a little bit of time choosing, it will like have an arrow over who you're going to attack. And it is like the biggest arrow I've ever seen. It's like huge. It's like a third of the screen. It's like coming out of your cards and like pointing at one of them. I don't know what the deal is of all this. Like, I saw that there's beta card artwork in the game. So I can only assume that they upgraded the card artwork and then they never upgraded the rest of it.
Yeah, the game was in early access for a couple years before it came out. And it pretty won't surprise you. It was a small team that put this together, that hadn't done many games. So I think that's probably what it is. So this might make... So Kai like, because obviously they've been watching me as I've been playing, because normally I'd only played it on the Switch, so they had known I'd played it before but never really seen it, but it'd been on the big TV now. So Kai said, like basically they said that they thought it looked so bad that I was pretending I liked this game. They were so sure that I was like, they said it looks like one of the mobile games they pay YouTubers to play. that was from only looking at the game, and not just the artwork, but just all the UI and how it all worked. They were like, why, like, this is not a type of game you play. Why are you playing this? They just couldn't fathom it. I was like, honestly, it's amazing when you play.
Yeah. So I had the same thing with Bridie where I was like playing it and she was like, this looks absolutely terrible. And I was like, no, I promise. Like, it's actually really interesting. Like, you build up your block and then you like build up your attack. And she was like, it's literally so ugly. I would never be interested in this.
Yes,
like,
that's exactly what Kai said.
Yeah. But I don't know why. Like, the game was pretty successful and like, there's not that many things in it. Like, they could change them.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I wonder if it's like someone on the actual dev team, or so, you know, like I wonder if there's like a personal connection. I also just want it, I guess it just doesn't matter that much especially when it's a roguelike. When you go through, obviously it would be nice. Like, imagine if it had like beautiful pixel art or something. Like it would, like it would be nice. But I guess I just wonder if it's just they didn't feel like it was worth it. But I will say that one of the things is there is a huge mod community on Steam,
right?
That kind of will switch out artwork as well as just adding like new cards and stuff as well. So maybe they're primarily looking at PC and like the community's kind of, I won't say fixed it, but you know, like upgraded or updated some of the art assets in mod packs. So maybe that's a reason why.
Yeah, I will also say there's not that many enemies or environments. Yeah. Like, the amount of events, so like when you click on a question mark and you get something, like there seems to be loads of those, loads of different ones. Like I was getting a new one, probably still in my final runs, I was seeing ones I've never seen before, but there doesn't seem to be that many enemies or places to go. And I think there's like one song that plays the whole time. I know it's like, it's not that important, but if I'm going to be looking, I looked at it for 15 hours. Like, you know, it needs to look a little bit nicer. One thing I did switch on that did help the UI is there's an option to have the added up damage appear as one big number. So rather than it being like 555, it would just say 15. So that was one thing that I did that was quite good. But yeah, man, like I also remember back when we talked about this game being free on the Switch, you saying like, don't be put off by how it looks.
Yeah, I was worried about for this podcast. I was like, this is one of the most accessible games we've done. It's cheap and on many platforms. I was sort of like, just trust us on this, play it. Don't look up a trailer. Just play the game. I promise you. And like, don't be scared, because it's like, it doesn't look great, and it's like, it's a deck building game, and I get like that's not everyone's cup of tea. So like, I was really worried that no one would play it, but it seems at least some people from the community either did already like it or have checked it out. Yeah.
Well, the fact that you play against the computer means it's not very stressful. It being a deck builder is kind of alleviated by that. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I mentioned before is like, I think it's slightly too difficult to get your health back. So like, you kind of can either sit at a campfire or I think you can get a potion. But that's kind of it.
So for the Ironclad, they heal 7 health after every yeah. So and they have more starting health. So they're the first character. They're the easier ones.
Yeah, but that's the that was the only other thing that I was like, I wish other characters got. So when I played as the second character, I was like, oh, he doesn't get his health back every time. But he did have I think maybe it was the Ironclad had a move where if you kill someone with it, your health goes up by 4.
Yeah.
So that was quite good.
I'm not sure who it is. I mean, there are a few. There's like a card called like Bandage. There's a relic called the Bird-Faced Urn, where whenever you play a power card, you heal 2 HP. So you could build a deck around, I'm going to get loads of power cards that are really cheap. I don't even care what they do. I'm just going to use them to heal throughout. So there are ways you can do that. But I think the focus needs to be is I'm just not going to lose health in fights. Like that's going to be the strategy. It's like even against early enemies, it's like, oh, this enemy's going to do 12 damage. My block adds 5 block. I'm going to add 3 blocks and not attack because I'm not going to take any. Like it's not well. Like if I could kill this thing without taking any damage, but it will take 3 turns more. I might as well do it. You got to be in that mindset. It's like every health point really matters because down the road it will end up adding up otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Like some fights, the 3 enemies you're against could do 30 damage each, and your character might only have 70 total. So it's like you're really, really up against it. Also, I feel like I really noticed it when I was getting hit for like 35 and my character only has 70. And it's like, oh my God, that's half my health bar gone in a single hit. Like I can get 5 block maybe, but that's it. It was times like that where it was very tricky. But I mean, I did manage to clear it, so it couldn't have been impossible.
Is there anything? Oh, yeah. One other thing I did want to say about is there's a board game coming out. I don't know. Did you see anything about that?
I saw it advertised when I was searching for this.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Is it just the same?
So it's a co-op board game. So that's interesting. Like I'm assuming you can probably play it by yourself, but the idea of doing it co-op, I think, sounds pretty interesting. I know it's hugely successful. It made over 4 million on Kickstarter, which is, I guess, wow. I don't know any exact sale figures for this game, but that is kind of enough to show you kind of how popular this game is, and then also just how many games it has spawned as well. Like it kind of created this own genre, so I guess that's kind of a good sign.
So is the board game not out then?
No, as far as I could tell, I saw it was on a list of like most anticipated for 2023. So unless it had come out and I'd missed it, but I don't think it's out yet, unless maybe there's like a thing for like early backers or something. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you can do a late pledge for Kickstarter now. So I think some people have it, but there are people that have backed it before.
Yeah. I'm curious because, like, having the computer figure out all the numbers for you is good, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder how different it will be. I wonder how much they've adapted the game.
One thing also we haven't mentioned at all is the story. Like, is there even a story? I don't know. Is there? I
mean, I assume there is. It doesn't really like the game's not pushing a story on you. I'm sure there's lore. I'm sure there's a world, a setting, but there's never an actual full cutscene or anything. I mean, there's a little kind of thing that plays when you complete the game, but it's very minor. It's more of like a comic, freeze frame like artwork. Mm-hmm. Which is nice. That artwork is good.
Well, the title screen artwork is good, and the card artwork is good. So
yes,
there is
the
good
character
stuff in there,
selects. So. They look great.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like with the 15 hours I've played, I kind of feel like I've seen it. Like I don't feel particularly compelled to go back to it. I had a great time with it, but I feel like I'm done. So
yeah, it's fair enough. I would say maybe do a run with Defect to see how they work because they are smart. It is. Yeah,
but I got 100% clear rate on the previous one. I can't match that. I can't do that again.
Just check them out. Just check them out because they're my favorite character. Just see what they're about. Do
I'll do it for you.
A run.
Yeah, okay. I'll do it for you, mate. But yeah, the 100% clear. I was like, that was like I put it down. I was like, I'm never going to top that. Like that's great.
Yeah, cool. Were there any questions from the community, or should we go straight to the list?
One more question, definitely more for you than for me. Doomed Citrus on YouTube asks, do you tend to switch who you play, or do you stick with one character?
I switch through. Like so, the way I did this is I went through to try and get to the end of Act 4 on each. So I played a bunch of Ironclad, and then the Silent, then Defect, then the Watcher. And then just went back to Defect because I like them. So that's what I did here.
I think if I was to play it again, I'd probably pick up the Silent again. I had more fun with them than I did with Ironclad.
Yeah.
Ironclad felt very all or nothing in the build, whereas Silent, I was kind of making it up as I went along and it worked quite well. So, yeah. Anyway, is it list time?
Yeah, let's put it on the list. So Slay the Spire is going to be the 49th entry on the list. It's kind of just driven home how close we are to 50. I know it doesn't mean anything really. It's just a landmark number, but yeah, we kind of didn't really plan ahead for that.
I think that'll be our 2-year anniversary as well, because we've done a few different episodes, like because of Christmas specials and stuff. It's lined up. Oh, isn't that nice?
It's good. Yeah. It's good. It doesn't mean anything, but it's nice. Just nice when it's cozy round numbers.
Yeah.
Can I go first for this one? So in a previous episode that some of you may have seen, we did our top 20 games of all time. Like, not this list. This list is a kind of all over the place list of recommendations from different people and games that we had never played before. Like our all-time games of all time. Slay the Spire got a mention on that list. It didn't make the list, but it got an honorable mention. It was essentially 21 on the list. So that gives a good idea for my love for this game. So I think I should probably go first, because I think it's going to end. That will be as high as it will be, and then Ollie can try and talk some sense into my madness and keep talking about the weird-looking snake enemy. So I would put it at number 9. So it would be one under Doom / Prey, which are linked together. I mean, I would put it above Doom, but I wouldn't put it above Prey. But that does mean I would put it one over Humanity and also above The Walking Dead Season 1.
That is very interesting, because I was like, what do I compare it to in terms of games that I like on the list? And I was thinking Mr. Driller Drill Land is what I had a very equal vibe, equal fun playing. But now you said Humanity, I'm thinking actually Humanity might be closer to what I was feeling, like the puzzliness of it, the compellingness of it, the originality.
I think it is. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it is. Definitely more Humanity.
I think you're right. I think maybe it needs to go there.
What?
I think you're right. Seriously, yeah. Because I was all I was doing in my mind was looking at what do I compare it to? Mr. Driller Drill Land. Like, it's great at what it does. It's exactly what you expect. Like, Mr. Driller Drill Land is a great puzzle game.
But the thing is, Ollie, is I've been wasting my time. So I spent half an hour before this podcast looking in the mirror going, no, Ollie, you're wrong. It should be higher, Ollie. You're wrong. I was practicing my aggressive argument for this, assuming I was going to have to twist your arm.
No, I think Humanity is exactly what I would compare it to. So it seems perfect that they're together.
And are you okay that way round?
No, I think maybe we should put it below Humanity. I mean, if these games are like identical, like compelling, sort of puzzly, sort of strategy games, Humanity's got the edge because it looks a billion times nicer.
You look at 2 screenshots of the game side by side. It's so tough.
Humanity's literally like a beautiful piece of artwork, and Slay the Spire is like an ad for a mobile game.
So one of the things I will say for Slay the Spire is I do also have like a weirdly strong emotional connection to the game, and the reason for that is because when I first started playing it is when I first got my dog May, who was a rescue dog who had a traumatic background. And so she would basically just panic if she was in the room by herself, and she would like be howling and like stressed out, and like basically she could not be in a room on her own. So when we got her, we set up like the sofa as a bed, and we were basically living 24/7 in the room with May because she would be so panicked if we left the room. And so I was playing a lot of Switch games, and it's at the time I got Slay the Spire. So when I think of Slay the Spire, I think of playing it endlessly, like sitting, and I couldn't, just to be clear, I couldn't go near her, this dog. I couldn't stroke her. She wouldn't want to go near me, but if I left the room, she would panic. So it's like this weird time where I would be playing it, and then during my time playing it, eventually she'd get a little bit closer, or she wouldn't go in the corner. Yeah. And then eventually I was on a beanbag playing this game, and she came up and jumped on my lap. And I was like, considering I had never even stroked her before. And so like this, you know, when like a piece of art is associated with a time in your life, like this game is associated with like me building a bond with my beloved dog. So I do have that personal touch, which is why it should go above Humanity. But very valid arguments, Ollie. Very valid.
So you had that in your back pocket in case I said it shouldn't go that high. You were going to bring out the
I was expecting to. I was expecting. No, I'll give you Humanity because to be fair, I'm pretty close between the two, so I'm not. I won't moan about.
Well,
that.
I also, I went on my longest ever holiday in my life recently, and I forced myself to relax, which I never normally do. I actually had a day of doing nothing, and on that day, all I did was play Slay the Spire, and on the journey there and back, all I did was play Slay the Spire. So I guess I also have a connection to it now.
Yeah, you will always associate it with that holiday.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it's now in number 10.
Yeah, so it's made it into the top 10, just about into the top 10. It's sad to see The Walking Dead season 1 push down, another game that
Yeah.
we both love. But I'm glad that even if its days might be a little bit numbered, just because it is on the edge of the top 10, I'm glad that at least for now it's in the top 10. I guess seeing as it was just outside my top 20, I guess maybe its final home being just outside the top 10 will be fitting. The game that almost did it will be known as forever.
Fair enough. Can I just quickly say, someone commented once and said that the way I reorganise the list is really inefficient and there's a much quicker way of doing it. And I messaged them back and said, please tell me the quick way of doing it. And they never did. So if you're watching, please tell me the quicker way of doing it other than moving every single game down every time, which is what I do. Because I'm curious.
I wonder if they don't know how like the program we're using works, and like they assume it's like
I could just press enter and it would drop.
Yeah.
It doesn't
get AI to do it. Just tell it to order it for you.
Yeah. Right. Shall we? I mean, congratulations to Slay the Spire.
Yeah. Amazing.
Number
As
10.
I said, in the top 10. One other little thing I do want to mention is Ollie and I had kind of behind the scenes been talking a little bit about our number 1 and number 2 on the list, which is Tears of the Kingdom and Disco Elysium. Basically, the more I played Tears of the Kingdom, the more, not even faults I saw, but things that I didn't like about it, or things that I definitely preferred with Breath of the Wild. And I was on the fence about what I wanted to be at number 1. But I wanted to hold off until I finished Tears of the Kingdom. I have now finished Tears of the Kingdom, and I still am undecided about which one I prefer. I think the problem is I think in my head, I think the problem is Tears of the Kingdom is kind of representing Breath of the Wild. And because Breath of the Wild is, and because they're so similar, like I feel like it's kind of covering that type of game, which isn't kind of fully covered otherwise. But I do think that it's so close between them that maybe that is something that we should revisit in the future. Or maybe like on weekends, Disco Elysium's number 1, but on weekdays it's Tears of the Kingdom. We like switch them around or something. Like, it's so tough.
How about this? Because you're planning on playing Baldur's Gate, right?
I mean, at some point in the distant future.
Okay, so I was going to play it like day 1 when it comes to Xbox. I was going to say maybe once you play that, because then you've played like another one.
Another CRPG?
Yeah, you could think about it like that, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the thing is, like Disco Elysium, I feel like even if I'm playing like some like fantasy CRPG or something, like Disco Elysium is just going to be such a unique beast anyway, just because like of the setting and like the writing and stuff. Like Disco Elysium would be higher on my personal list than Tears of the Kingdom. But Breath of the Wild is on my personal list at number 2, and Tears of the Kingdom is so close. But there's enough things in Tears of the Kingdom that I wasn't that big of a fan of, and things that I'm still so amazed by how good all of the building or the Ultra Hand stuff and that is. But I don't feel like the game almost makes the most of those mechanics, and by the end you're really only experimenting for the fun of just experimenting rather than solving puzzles on like, oh, this is the way I'm going to get around this situation is by doing this creative thing. But it's not doing that. It's kind of, you can mess around if you want, but also you could just use the very simple method that works for a lot of these scenarios. But yeah, I don't want to start bashing it because it is an amazing game. But I guess I just thought I'd air the current situation with those 2 games.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm happy to leave them around the way they are. I would personally put Disco higher, but I feel like Disco Elysium's story affected me more than it affected you. I felt a lot more like I could obviously not like super relate to the main character because he's awful, but there was elements in him that I was like, oh my God, I've been there. And it really resonated with me, which I don't know if it was the same for you, but that's
I remember when you lost your gun. I
drove my car into the lake.
Yeah, you're like, finally somebody who understands my problems. My drunken driving rampages.
Anyway, so let's leave it for now. I'll also sort this list out another time. I can't sit here and do it on video and be embarrassed again. But I'll quickly read out where Slay the Spire is. In fact, I'll just do the whole top 10. starting with Slay the Spire at number 10. Number 9 is Humanity. 8 is Doom. 7 is Prey. 6 is The Last of Us. 5 is The Last of Us Part 2. 4 is Hollow Knight. 3 is Death Stranding. 2 is Disco Elysium. And 1 is Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
For now.
For now. Indeed. Can we talk about what's coming up?
Yeah, we can.
So next time, on October 20th, we have Alien Isolation. And then November 3rd, if I was in the room with you, I'd be shaking you because I want to know what we're doing after Alien Isolation. Do you know?
I do not know. I do not know. I am sorry. We have a guest joining us, and they have been. I've been talking to them. They are thinking about it. I will give them another poke soon, but they are yet to decide. Yes,
and I also want to say I'm not moaning. I just want to say that about 3 episodes ago, I said to Joe, it's going to sneak up on you if you don't sort it out. It's going to sneak up on you. No, it's fine. And we still don't know. That's what I'm annoyed about.
It's not me. I don't want to be too naggy, but I have been messaging them.
Okay.
All right. Anyway. I would pick the game. It's not down to me.
So yeah, October 20th is Alien Isolation with a guest. November 3rd, we don't know. November 17th, though, we do know.
Yeah.
So do you want to...
Yeah,
reveal that? I can't actually remember the exact name because there was there was a European name and an American.
Yeah, so it's best known for its American name, which is Survival Kids, but the European or maybe even just UK version is called Stranded Kids,
which is
a much worse name. So I think overall we'll probably just call it Survival Kids, seeing as that is the better name and what most people know it as. But this is an original Game Boy game, not even Game Boy Color, made by Konami, and it's often credited as one of the first survival games ever, in the way that we know what a survival game is today. And when we did a poll asking people what genre we haven't done would people want, a lot of people said survival games. So we found the weirdest, most obscure survival game there is. Sorry, everyone who wanted Don't Starve or Subnautica or Minecraft. I'm sorry,
I've never even heard of those games. I'm always a Survival Kids guy.
Yeah, we are playing Survival Kids on the original Game Boy. I haven't looked up loads about it, but I just know that it's considered to be like one of the hidden gems of the Game Boy. And apparently it's genuinely really good and interesting. So that's the game we're going to be playing. It's not too rare if you are able to get a physical copy. If not, there are other ways of playing it that I will leave to your own discretion.
Yeah. All I'm hoping is that there's 2 types of Joe Garrett choices, and I'm hoping it's one of the good ones.
So this is a roll of the dice one. You can't blame me. I know in the past there's been games that I've chosen that have been unknowns and haven't been the most favorable, but I'm hoping this will be. I think this it's an original Game Boy game. We've got to know what we're in for here, but I think it's going to be interesting, which is what my hope is. I'm not expecting it to be the thing that kicks Slay the Spire out the top 10, but I'm hoping it's enjoyable and there's going to be interesting takeaways in the discussion.
Yeah, me too. Also, I guess we'll both be playing with save states as well, which should make it a little bit easier because I bet it would be quite tough otherwise. Just guessing. Yeah. But maybe you can take that information and think about it and then you can decide how to play it yourselves. So we'll figure that out in time for November.
I've got the cartridge. I've got it just outside my room.
I know you do, mate. And you're playing it on your original Game Boy, aren't you?
I'm not. I'm playing on an Analog Pocket, which is all legal. Everything. I'm playing it completely legally. Yeah, so that's the next game that we're doing, but that's the only one we have ready to announce. And I did not cut out us floundering about what game's coming out next. I promise. Also, I will just say at the moment, obviously, Blood Brothers is continuing, and there's been some really fun episodes recently. So if you haven't been watching it, feel free to check out some of them. There was also the music quiz episode that went up recently, where Ollie played very teeny snippets of soundtracks to video games, and I tried and sometimes succeeded, sometimes failed to work out what those games were. But people really enjoy those videos, so check that out. There's not been a huge amount else going on. As Ollie mentioned, he's been on holiday, and then I've just been particularly busy with my work on my other channel at the moment. So there might be a slight slowdown in kind of one-offs and best of threes at the moment. But we are going to be getting together soon to record loads of Blood Brothers in person. So that will all continue, and the podcast will continue with 2 exciting guests back to back. So there's still plenty to look forward to on the bonus points.
Yeah, and if you want more, you can always sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/bonus points, where we put out another podcast every off week. So you basically, if you sign up to that, you get a podcast every week, which is pretty cool.
And so you can hear about some of the other games that we may have been playing but haven't been talking about on the podcast. Maybe games that have Pinocchio in them. Maybe
I was going to say you played Lies of P. I was curious.
Yeah, well, maybe you're going to have to listen to Extra Credit to find out what I think of Lies of P and anything else that I've been playing on my continuing Game Boy adventure. I've been playing some other absolute classics. Mole Mania has left now, and I'm playing some other games. So if you want to hear about them,
nice one.
Tune in to Extra Credit.
Nice one. I think that's everything then.
Cool. Brilliant. So thank you all so much for watching or listening. We will see you in a couple of weeks to do Alien Isolation. Best played on the Switch is surprisingly the best platform, best looking version. So that's where I'm going to be playing it as well as Ollie. So yeah, we'll see you there for that one. But for now, we'll see you later. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.